The new Boost Mobile network is offering unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for life.
That sounds like a threat.
Then how do you think we should say it?
Unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month for the rest of your life?
I don't know.
Until your ultimate demise.
What if we just say forever?
Okay.
$25 a month, forever.
Get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile forever.
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Deep in the ocean, an orcapod is on the hunt. But these aren't your average orcas. These guys are organized.
Marketing team, did you get those social media posts scheduled for the SEAL migration?
Aye, Captain. We even have an automated notification for all pod managers when they go live.
They use Monday.com to keep their teamwork sharp, their communication clear, and their goals in sight. Monday.com. For whatever you run, even orcas. Go to Monday.com to dive deeper.
Hello, you are listening to Just Films and That. This is the podcast where we talk about those films we think deserve a little bit more love. Whether they're underrated or underseen, we're going to talk about them. So let's see which film it's going to be this week. Hello, yes, thank you very much for listening. This is Just Films and That. I'm the host, Josh Hallam.
And I'm Jamie Allerton.
And this week we're discussing Daylight from 1996, so spoiler warning if you haven't seen it. Whilst we've got your attention before we get cracking, if you could head on over to whatever app or device you're listening to this on, give us a 5-star rating and a review, it'd be massively appreciated. It does help people find us and hear our thoughts on various films such as Daylight. We're on Patreon as well, so if you fancy getting ad-free extended episodes with early access to them, then you can do so for £1 a month. Just click the link in the show notes. So, Jamie... Daylight, then.
Do you want to know what Daylight is about, Josh?
Daylight from 1996, then, is your pick for this week. Yeah. So do tell us and tell the lovely listeners at home, what is Daylight from 1996 about? Why did you pick Daylight from 1996?
So 2 years after Speed, a new hero in a beautiful tactical vest risks his life to save a group of economically and racially diverse strangers in a modern disaster movie that asks the question, if Kit Latura knew how annoying these people were going to be, would he have still got into the tunnel, trying to get them to Daylight?
That is what it's about.
This is 1996, which is like my heyday for just getting movies out from the video store and being like, oh God, this is great. And it's so I'm about 10 years old in 96. So I'm just about able to go up to the shop on my own and get out films.
Get out Daylight. One copy of Daylight, please, sir. Yeah. I know it must have
Daylight again. You've had it 5 times out this week.
If you like it that much, you could keep it.
And this was one where kind of, obviously I hadn't studied films yet, so I didn't really, not a 10. Still wanted to be a basketball player.
Because of Space Jam, probably.
Yeah. But I absolutely loved, I loved Stallone back then.
Yeah.
I was introduced to Rocky very early on. I loved the format of disaster films where it's like a group of people and you start to get to know them. I really loved the dynamic of the people in this because I hate them at the start. I didn't absolutely. As I was rewatching this, I was like, oh no, I've made a mistake here because this ensemble is loathsome. They all kick off on Kit once he gets out the drain and they're like, what, it's just you? Oh, you loser.
Yeah, I mean, I do, just to defend the fictional characters, they are in quite a high stress situation.
Yeah, but the New Yorkers, they should be used to
it. So why did you pick it then? Is it underrated? Is it underseen? Did you just want to talk about Stallone's tack vest and the fact that he jumped through some fans?
I think it's underrated, and listeners who didn't listen in last week might not know that we've switched it up, so we actually do the critical reception first.
We're giving it a go. Maybe not next week, but this week we'll try it again.
If we find that our listeners have halved, it's not because I chose Daylight, it's because of the switch to the format.
Because people go, no, I wish to wait for the end for the critical reception.
Right, so IMDb gives us a 5.9.
Yeah.
Right, which you probably think, oh, that's fair enough, It's no Shakespearean love, but it's all right. The Rotten Tomatoes audience score, 37%.
Oof.
Yeah, Rotten Tomatoes critics, 26%.
Oh dear. So that averages out at 40.6, so 4 out of 10-ish.
Yeah, it's more the critics on that.
That's low. I mean, we're in Hellboy territory again.
Yeah, which is somewhere I never wanted to go again.
Here we are again. What do people have,
His
against
name is
the big
Kit
man saving
Kit
thief?
Latura. Kit Latura.
Yeah.
How are we hating on that?
Yeah, you're hating on him. He's a mixed guy who something happened and we're still not quite sure, but that's fine.
What do you mean he has a backstory that is complicated and
and
emotional.
it comes up and it's definitely touched upon, but perhaps not fully.
Because everyone in New York seems to remember that thing that happened.
Yeah, the people in this version of New York are very up on their what's going on in the emergency services admin.
Wait a minute, didn't you used to be the whole fire chief of the whole Manhattan? But then he sent some people in, which is his responsibility.
Said to most people in this country, who is the head of the fire service? You would go, the Prime Minister. I don't know.
And if you said it was a guy called Kit Latura, I'd be like, keep him in that job.
Yeah. And is he Sylvester Stallone? He's Sylvester Stallone, yeah.
Can he talk properly? It doesn't matter.
So, just to remind people, then we'll get stuck into it. Then we'll talk about the structure of the pod is we talk about the likes, we talk about the dislikes, we revisit that critical reception, then we conclude Jamie's picked it because it's underrated. Is it underrated? Before we get started, I will just say this is directed by Rob Cohen. So, similarly with Dragonheart, we are going to talk about the film. There are things around Rob Cohen and certain allegations against him. We're not going to get into that, but we are going to talk about it. At the end of the day, he directed this film, so it's really hard to avoid talking about his work as the director on this film. That's what we're going to do. So we'll start with the likes, then moving on swiftly from that. I mean, so before we get into the likes, I mean, I hadn't even heard of this.
Oh, really? Is this your first watch?
First watch, and I'll be honest with you, mate. I went into this with floor-low expectations. Not, to be honest, I don't really know why. I think it might just be that period in Stallone's career where he couldn't really catch a cold. Do you know what I mean? He'd done bits and bobs. I mean, this isn't the worst period of his career, but it's certainly not, it's not Rocky and it's not the
90s are not great for Stallone.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, he's done Judge Dredd, which is his best film, but...
mate, I fucking love Judge Dredd.
It's on my list. It is on my list for this. But, it's not the highlight of his career. And I don't mean this film, I mean this period of time. So I don't know, really. But I have to say, like, coming away from this, I had a bloody good time with this.
Yes, Josh. Yes.
Yeah, I thought it was, I did go in with low expectations, but I thought it was well put together, tight, high concept disaster film with great set pieces and ideas in it. Like we touched on before, this is post-Speed, post-Jurassic Park. So it's, high concept disaster films. It's, it's Jurassic Park, but it's this. It's Speed, but it's this. And this is What If, a disaster film, but it's a collapsed tunnel.
Yeah. I think the premise is great, and I think Stallone carries this off better than Arnie, or like you could even see Seagal trying to pull this off.
Oh God, imagine that. You know what I mean? He's good at what he does, Seagal, but he could not make this.
But actually, Stallone, when you put Stallone in a shirt, like I do buy him as like an intellectual.
I think he's great in this. I think Stallone's. I think the cast are pretty good generally, but Stallone himself, at this point in his career, obviously he's fairly known for action, and this has obviously got action beats to it, but it is a disaster film. But I think he's got some good vulnerability to him in this. He isn't just an unstoppable machine like a Rambo-like figure. I think he does a good job of this guy driven by his own redemption type story. I mean, the odd issue with his character is a little bit of a Mary Sue, but I think generally, I think he's pretty compelling in this. I thought he was pretty good, and he does the action and the stunts well.
Yeah, and this is probably one of my favorite characters of his, because he's just, I know you said, like, the Mary Sue thing, but it's just someone who's inherently good. He's a good person. And the mistake he made, anyone could make. Like, in his backstory, it's not like, oh, I accidentally killed 10 puppies. Like, it's just that he made the wrong call.
Yeah.
And I like that when people start arguing, he's not like, hey, I'll just punch the people who are arguing against me. Like, he's good at, like, placating people, and he's like, he thinks things through. And the actual crux of it is he goes in not knowing if he can get the people out.
And the other thing is, you do believe he's really good at that job. Like the way he does it, you're not like, there are other films where it's like you see them and there's some vague story about what they're doing for a job, but they're just a muscle bound hench, action star. Whereas in this, you're like, you do believe that Stallone's character absolutely knows what he's doing in that scenario and acts so well under pressure.
I never imagined that Steven Seagal could cook a souffle in Under Siege, but
No?
I do believe that Stallone is able to go through these fans.
Cook in Under Siege? Like how far does he go? He's not doing a crock on boosh, is he? But
I reckon he could do, the beans with the little sausages in.
Yeah.
Smash them up properly.
Or he puts a bit of cheese on them to spice it up.
and he cuts the sausages up.
Yeah.
Yeah, should we? What did you like about it then? I'm so happy you liked this, by the way.
Yeah, so I mean, I did like Stallone's performance. I like the cast generally. Actually, I do understand what you say. There are a lot of moaners and whinges in this, but what I like in this is they all have different points to dial it up. So I like that they're, and it does come down to the way it's made as well. But they aren't afraid in this to make you uncomfortable. So there are other disaster films where you know certain characters ain't making it to the end of the film. And there's all sorts of, sacrificial lamb type characters, cut the rope type characters, thinking of things like The Day After Tomorrow and stuff like that, which I don't mind, but, that's the first thing that came to mind. And they're not making it to the end of the film, and there's just a touch of, they just don't feel real. Whereas in this, there's a bit where, there's a bit at the end where they have to leave Maddie, played by Amy Brennehan, and Stallone in the water to get out. She's hysterical.
Yeah.
And you believe, she thinks she's going to die. She thinks that's it. And I've not seen her. I know she's in one of the fairly big American TV shows. I think it's Keeping
Judge
Faith.
and Amy?
Judge and Amy, something like that. Yeah. It's one of those, procedural dramas. I've not seen her in much, and I thought she was excellent in this. Whereas I think because of the concept, which is really, really strong, they don't rely on effects. Now, the effects are good, but there is a lot of particularly sort of more modern ones, like maybe post-Independence Day, which is the same year as this. Again, The Day After Tomorrow or 2012, stuff like that, which is, it's a lot of people staring at CGI spectacle and going, oh my God, or God help us, or that sort of thing. And it became about that kind of spectacle. Whereas this, it was more to do with lots of MacGuffins, lots of what's going to go wrong next, who's going to step on a mine next as we try and navigate our way out of this. So I thought that concept really claustrophobic as well. So I that made me feel, I'm not particularly good with confined spaces. I'm okay, but it did make me feel really confined. But I enjoyed those bits of spectacle that it did with the set pieces, and good use of peril as well. So it's another one where you're you don't think everyone's going to make it. Obviously, there's probably an argument that you could maybe say, yes, Stallone might be okay. But I was quite shocked when George dies.
Yeah, George's death is one of my all-time favorite movie deaths, just because you feel so bad for him, and it's not just a disaster movie death. He's so nice in it, and also Stallone is so full of remorse when he's saying goodbye to him, and he's like, just give me time. Yeah. It's I think, and I don't think Stallone's acting is great throughout this. Some of it is very hammy, but when he's saying goodbye to George, you can see how heartbreaking, and he's just desperate to come up with some way of saving this guy with a broken neck. And the way that actor takes it as well, where he just goes, I've got a broken neck, haven't I? And then he says the line, which you'd think it's cheesy, but it's actually really beautiful. You'll just get everyone to daylight. Yeah. I'm getting goosebumps now just thinking about George's death.
But no, you're right. And that sort of sense of peril alongside the sort of confined spaces and the set pieces that they managed to build out of things like, gas pockets, or like you say, water coming in, all that sort of stuff. So it is spectacle, but it almost lends more and owes more to a horror film than it does a disaster film. But it really nails what it does in that execution. That's what I really liked about it. And also, just to finish on what I liked about it, Viggo Mortensen is an absolutely unbelievable arsehole. Thought he was brilliant in this. And this is when he was a sort of he hadn't really done much leading man stuff, but you forget that and you look at him and be like, well, that's Aragorn, isn't it?
Yeah,
but he's not Aragorn yet. So you're like, so even when obviously they kill his character off, and I was like, oh, is that like an executive decision type job where they've cast someone as a fake hero? But actually it's not, because he wasn't a household name, but he wasn't not known at all at this point, was he? Right. So
I think I'd
done G.I. Jane, hadn't he?
Carlito's Way.
Done Carlito's Way, G.I. Jane. But he hadn't done, maybe he'd not even done G.I. Jane. He'd not done,
he's
obviously not done Lord of the
actor,
Rings. Yeah, at this point, he's a character actor, right?
Yeah, and I think maybe they give you his death because you do kind of want him to die. He's rich. They've shown that he's rich. Yeah. He's an arsehole. And he's doing this for the glory, not because he wants to get people out. Even the bit where he's like, film me. You're like, just get everybody out, mate. Because the other deaths in this are really tragic. There's the prisoner who is kind of confused, but he thinks he knows that he's in charge, and he ends up getting killed by the blast from Mortensen. And then someone just dies of hypothermia. How often do you get that in movie? Yeah.
One of the older characters. Yeah. And again, that's like, it's more realistic, isn't it?
Yeah, I do wish the dog had died. I have some issues with that. We'll get to that in dislikes.
That would have been quite brave, wouldn't it? Right? Like, it's another one of those disaster films of like, and then the dog's fine.
If Stallone had killed the dog before then.
Or if Stallone had just gone, no, leave it. It's a dog. Like, we've got to get out. Like,
leave it to eat George. It's fine.
I mean, that's pretty much it for my likes, which is that I genuinely thought it was just a tight, well-made, sort of, the better half of the genre. For me, it's easy to just go, it's a disaster film, but it's like, it's a disaster film, but it's an asteroid. It's a disaster film, but it's global warming. It's a disaster film, but it's just the end of the world. Whereas this, it's tight, it's confined, and that gives them more space to play with than you'd think, really. And I think that's the strength of it, as well as that, like I say, that idea of they make you watch those uncomfortable moments, and they make you, I suppose, make you feel the weight of the decisions.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for me, you've put it on the head there. This is a great disaster film, and it feels like one of those 70s disaster films.
Yeah,
where
sort of like a Poseidon Adventure or something like that.
Yeah, and I always love when you cut back to people who are working on the outside who are like, "Why you can't do that? I've got people in there." Yeah. Any film where people say, "I've got people in there," God damn it! I'm like, I'm in. I'm all in on this film.
The Billy Bob Thornton Armageddon character. That's the first the guy in the chair. That's what it is, isn't it?
And they like, again, because they're smart enough to have George fall in love with the lady who's on the controller side. God, that hits heavy when she finds out that he didn't make it.
The bracelet bit, man.
Yeah,
that's I'm going to use your term here. That's an emotion bomb. And now I know you want to talk about emotion bombs.
Yeah,
so set them off, baby. Set them off.
Well, I think that emotion bomb. And Amy Madigan falling in. She does that. So she sounds like someone desperate to get out. Yeah. When towards the end, when she falls in the water with him, and also because in her head she's like, "I've fallen in this because of the dog." Yeah, we were trying to save a dog. And normally in a disaster film, if people are trying to go ahead and someone's like, "No, save me," Hollywood would be like, "And they're the arsehole."
Yeah,
But in this, it's just that she's desperate to survive. And it's just so sad. Like a lot of it is so sad. And another thing that I really love in this, a lot of films, people are like, there's a burst water pipe or people have to go underwater, and then they just shake it off. In this, he is like, look, we're going to get hypothermia. We are, and people are constantly like rubbing their hands because they're cold. Like at no point do they forget the environment that people are in and how dangerous it is.
There's no point in this, even after the film finishes, where you think they will all be fine. Like you finish it and you think they will all have PTSD.
Yeah, I mean, they came up in the Hudson as well, so they've got Hep B as well.
Set the dog's fine.
I did like that the visuals on the end. Because I always think in my head, this is so stupid when they get blown up through, and they set it up nice where he's like, yeah, a blowout happened to these people. One guy survived. But I actually think the visuals of that, like somehow they shoot underwater, but you can clearly see, and it doesn't look like a dummy or CGI, a human being going up through the river.
Yeah, no, it does.
And also they don't do that. I was like, well, there's definitely going to be that one of them can't breathe and then they have to do mouth to mouth.
And then it's the coughing up a bit of water and it's like, oh, thank God at the end, that sort of thing.
And it's time we tell Hollywood, look, if someone's doing mouth to mouth on someone and their name is on the poster, we know they're coming back. So stop it.
Yeah, it's the whole, the person who did it is the most famous person in the credits who's not going to win the credits. Anything else for you on the likes?
I mean, I really like the practical effects as well. And I don't think there's any effects where I went, oh, that looks a bit shonky, because the 90s were the kind of height of model work as well. Yeah. So you've got some really good miniatures in this. Apart from that, I'd just say, I loved it. I mean, I'm happy to get into dislikes. I'm ready to rail at this movie.
So we'll move on then to anything we didn't like about the film, or that we'd change about the film then. So, I mean, it isn't perfect, but I think it's a fairly strong entry into that genre sort of thing. The main thing I would say is it's probably like a lot of films of this era, maybe fallen victim to parody a little bit in terms of the intensity of the performances and stuff like that. So some of the dialogue now has aged to now looks a bit cheesy, because the bit isn't there where Stallone says to someone, "Where's the chief?" and someone says, "As far as I'm concerned, he's standing right in front of me." You know, it's that sort of thing where you're like, a lot of it is dealt with in a way that you think, oh, this could maybe actually happen. And then people talk like that, and you're like, nobody talks like that. Absolutely nobody talks like that. So,
do you mean the bit where he meets the new chief and they're like, well, we can't do anything while this guy's in our way, and then that guy just dies in a tunnel collapse? Yeah. Like, well, you're back, and luckily we've got a vest that your name in Velcro on it.
He dies like a cartoon character. He dies like Wiley Cat. It crawls into a space, and it's like, and then it's like smoke comes out, and it's almost like wah 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 wah.
There's that woman who's
and
like,
it's the guy from Shawshank Redemption, isn't it? Is it the Boggs? Is it Boggs?
Oh, is it
Shawshank Redemption? Yeah,
from Aliens.
Yeah, and he's in The Departed as well. Mark Ralston, I think he's called. But anyway, yeah. So it's a bit cheesy. I've got another point about Stallone's character as well. Do you want to say what you want, or do you want me to say that?
Nah, go on. You crack on, because I've only got like plot contrivances.
Yeah, for me, the only thing is I'm not sure we actually needed the extra jeopardy of just Stallone's backstory. In terms of they just sort of hint that he's made this mistake, but it was just a mistake and he didn't really do anything wrong. He just made the wrong call. So when I said he's a bit of a Mary Sue, that's what I mean. Because what I'd actually rather have had is show us him being flawed, rather than telling us he's just made a mistake, but actually he's pretty good. Maybe at some point in the film he makes a mistake and that weighs heavy on him, rather than there being a backstory. I don't think it really adds anything.
Have him kill the dog.
Say again.
Have him kill the dog.
Have him kill the dog. And then
the dog.
Just he's like, we need food. And you're like, yeah.
It's been 2 hours. We need food.
But no, just, I don't mind the stuff about him not being the ex-chief and he's the chief, but I just don't think it adds that much. If anything, I'd rather it was just he was the chief, he goes in and he makes a mistake and you feel the weight of that instead. But that's something I'd change. Other than that, I thought he was pretty strong, mate, to be honest with you. What about you?
Yeah, so I do really like this film. I think the main problem I have is, do you know when you watch a disaster film and you go, oh, I would have done it this way, I would have done it that way. They don't really explain well enough why he can't go in through that fan bit and then just get them all out that way. Yeah. Like they say like some lines, but like, no, that is a fruit. Like, have that collapse or something happens. Maybe the initial plan is that they're going to stop the fans and he's going to bring them back up that way. Yeah, and then something happens, like a bit gets flooded, but air can still come through. But for me, and also he fannies about on them fans a lot, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I thought that was quite an interesting claustrophobic set piece. It just went on too long.
It's a good set piece, but the idea, I feel like they wrote it, and then when they were there, they should have changed it, because he's meant to just slip through these fans as he goes one by one. But when he lands on each fan, he kind of runs around looking for a gap, but all the gaps are the same size, and we can see that.
Fan, isn't it?
Yeah, but he spends a minute, and obviously they've done it to build tension, but you're watching it like, this is stupid. Just go for the gap. Just go for it.
Yeah, like you say, there are those contrived. Like there is that thing of, well, we need that for ventilation. Okay, blow the fans out and then pull the people up through the hole and replace the fans.
They don't need ventilation if we're getting them straight away.
Yeah.
So I would have preferred that. And also, where the hell did that dog go? They go underwater. The dog died. That's a big and emotional bit, because they were using the dog as like their son had died and they were using their dog as a replacement. There's a big emotional beat. Don't give me that dog back. I know they had to, but
I know what you mean. It's a bit, and the thing is, well, it's the same year as Independence Day, so you can't even say it's a rip off. But that two disaster films in the same year, with dog disappears and is then fine.
Yeah. Did you notice there was a weird like Jurassic Park diss on this where they showed one of the toys on the floor?
No.
There's a T-Rex toy on the floor, and there's something weird about those post Jurassic Park big budget movies where like they try to diss it and be like, "Oh, you're not the king anymore." It's like, I can't.
Yeah, almost like they're trying to dethrone it as we're the new disaster film now.
Nobody's getting daylight toys. Who's having the kit with your bedding?
Now with greasy tack vest.
But apart from that, yeah, I said before, I did have the fact that they all start kicking off on Stallone, but I think that makes it stronger at the end when there's something really nice about one of the younger criminals is really protective of the older man who lost his wife. Like when they're coming out of the tunnel, like that's an emotion bomb for me. When you see like, obviously they've had clashes before, and watching it again, I was worried that there'd be more arguments between the criminals and
I
people.
thought there'd be some sort of moral conundrum around, well, the sort of Dark Knight two boats scenario of like, well, they had their chance, and it's like, it's not. They just go, well, everyone. I suppose it helps that they're juvenile.
Yeah,
but it's just like, no, everyone needs to get out, and that's it.
I was waiting for that first, like, leave them behind because they did something. Yeah.
Can we trust them? We need to handcuff them together. All that sort of stuff, isn't it?
But I think all that goes away when they have to go and rescue George from under the water. And that's the first big, we're all in this together, which it would have been great if they'd done the song from High School Musical, but that's the first bit. Would it have been? That's my main dislike. There's no musical number. Oh, my final point, I hate an awful last line in a film. And the joke they do where they go, can I ride with you to the hospital? He goes, under one condition, we take the bridge. Yeah, all the tunnels are done, mate. And you're probably going to go helicopter. I reckon your lungs are collapsed.
I reckon you're nearly dead there, mate. You should probably focus on staying alive.
Yeah. And is there no hospital on that side? Is there no Brooklyn hospital?
At that point, someone just puts morphine in. Just shut up. Like.
He's going, no, he imagined a dog got out of that thing. No, he imagined other people got out. We just found this guy in the river.
Kept saying he was the ex-chief of the emergency services. That doesn't exist. Who does he think he is?
If we just worked out a better ending if he was just a homeless guy living in the tunnel? Nobody survived. And there wasn't even a collapse.
Okay, so we'll revisit those critical scores then. So Jamie, just to remind you, Jamie's picked it because he thinks it's underrated, and the average score came out, it was 40 or 4 out of 10, wasn't it? So what do we think then? I'll let you go first, mate. What do you think? Is that underrated?
I think this is at least a 6 out of 10.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Really enjoyable.
I think it's a fairly... Yeah, I think it's a solid, entry into that genre. So I'll give you that. I think it is an underrated film. So Daylight is underrated.
Well, I'm happy about that. What are we watching next week, Josh?
Next week, we're going to be watching a film called Celeste and Jesse Forever with Rashida Jones and Andy Samberg.
Oh, that sounds nice.
Yeah, indeed, it does. A lovely one. There's no one getting trapped in a tunnel, as far as I remember. So we won't bother. No, join us next week. We're going to be talking about Celeste and Jesse Forever. In the meantime, if you'd like to get in touch with us, it's filmsandthatpod@gmail.com. Sorry, on all the social medias. If you just search for Just Films and That on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube, and you'll find us. We're always putting stuff out there, so do give us a follow. All that remains to be said is thank you very much for listening. We really do appreciate it, and we'll see you next week. It's goodbye from me. Cheerio.
Bye.
To get people excited about Boost Mobile's new nationwide 5G network, we're offering unlimited talk, text, and data for $25 a month.
Forever.
Even if you have a baby.
Even if your baby has a baby.
Even if you grow old and wrinkly and you start repeating yourself.
Even if you start repeating yourself.
Even if you're on your deathbed and you need to make one last call.
Or text.
Right, or text. The long-lost son you abandoned at birth.
You'll still get unlimited talk, text, and data for just $25 a month with Boost Mobile.
Forever!
After 30 gigabytes, customers may experience slower speeds. Customers will pay $25 a month as long as they remain active on the Boost Unlimited plan.
Forever!
Hi, I'm Raj Punjabi from HuffPost.
And I'm Noah Michelson, also from HuffPost.
And we're the hosts of Am I Doing It Wrong? A new podcast that explores the all-too-human anxieties we have about trying to get our lives right.
Each week on the podcast, Raj and I pick a new topic that we want to understand better and bring a guest expert on to talk us through how to get it right.
And we're talking like legit, credible experts. Doctors, PhDs, all-around superheroes.
From HuffPost and Acast Studios, check out Am I Doing It Wrong? Wherever you get your podcasts.